welcome to the Bible class of Jews for Jesus with Bob Mendelson.
Tonight we're reading Judges chapter 19, one of the saddest epilogues in the Bible. We finished the stories of all the judges a couple chapters ago, but then there are some appendices that Samuel, who wrote the book of Judges, and he put these stories that add more sadness than I prefer to a great Bible book. A great Bible book that tells us the story of Jewish people after the conquest in Joshua's day and before the time of the kings. A time when we were, as it says in verse 1, when there was no king in Israel. Usually that phrase would be followed by what? There's no king in Israel. Everybody did what was right in their own eyes. So there's an ache for each of us who knows the Lord to hear this. Oh no, this is going to be another one of those stories. Why do they put these in here? Just add this Bible verse, would you please? 1 Corinthians chapter 10. I want to read the first 11 verses. The writer of Corinthians, who wrote it? The Apostle Paul, thank you, tells us that he is making sure that the believers in Corinth are not ignorant, that everything that happened to our people back in the day, we could say, in the days of Moses and in the days of the wilderness and beyond, were written, it says, for our instruction. These things, verse 11, happened to them as an example, and they were written for our instruction, upon whom the ends of the ages have come. So when I read about the history of the Jewish people, and I see the pluses and the minuses, when I see the liabilities and the assets, when I see the things we did that were really good and the things that really stink, all of that is written for our instruction, so that we do the right thing. We were there, he says. We were there. Look what it says. Our fathers were all under the cloud, verse 1, and all passed through the sea. What cloud and sea is that?
Red Sea.
Red Sea,
Yeah,
that's right. And then the cloud that led us by day and by night, right, okay? And all were baptized into Moses in the cloud and sea. That's a very clever use of a Newer Testament idea to say that when we went through the Red Sea, that we were, if you will, baptized into Moses. And then the cloud came back over us, so we were baptized in the Holy Spirit at that same time. He's saying that we were all there. Obviously, in the Passover story, we say we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt. We identify with our people in that moment of redemption. Will we now see that we were also there in the Red Sea, baptized, just like happened to each one of us who've come to faith in Yeshua, and we've been baptized in water and in the Holy Spirit, boom, cloud, sea. And then he says, all ate the same spiritual food and drank the same spiritual drink. What's that food that we ate in the wilderness? That was manna, which means, what is this? What is that? Somebody said that that's the original meaning of kangaroo. And I don't know if that's true. We'll ask Siri or Alexa one day. But in the meantime. So the food that we ate was manna. The drink we ate was the rock, from the rock. But he says the rock was Yeshua, the Messiah. So we're drinking spiritual food and drink. We're enjoying a spiritual relationship with God. Nevertheless, verse 5, with most of them, God wasn't so thrilled. Not such a good day. Because we were laid low in the wilderness. What does the writer say in Psalm 95? Because we didn't listen to his voice. We rejected him. And that's repeated elsewhere in Scripture. And so it's faith that God calls us to, and not listening or not believing is what makes us lay low, meaning die. These things happened as examples for us, verse 6. So when I read the book of Judges, chapter 19, it's for an example to me so that I know how to live. This isn't only history. It's my history. It's our people's history. And it's our people's history so that we learn that we should not crave evil things, whatever those evil things are, as they craved. And of course, he cites the ones there at the golden calf in verse 7. People sat down to eat and drink and stood up to play. Eating's not wrong, drinking's not wrong. But dismissing God and doing it in front of a golden calf, not so good. Okay? Don't let us act immorally. Don't let us, verse 9, tempt or try or test the Lord. You reckon that's your friend? We don't want to test the Lord as some of them did and were destroyed by the serpents. That's the story of the serpent lifted up in the wilderness, Numbers chapter 14, and how thousands of Jewish people died because we grumbled. So he's saying, I want you to see some of the Older Testament picture is there to teach you not to follow their example. Don't grumble, verse 10, as some of them did and were destroyed by the destroyer. So here are some things that are well known in Jewish history, biblical history, our history. Says don't do those. Verse 11, now these things happened to them as an example. Yeah. And they were written for our instruction, upon whom the ends of the ages have come. That's fantastic. I am part of the end game. I'm part of what God's doing in the last days, if you will, and I don't want to mess up. So how am I going to learn? By the way, the word example is tupikos, a type, and the telos of the ion have come. We're at the end. If he was at the end nearly 2,000 years ago, how much more are we at the end? So if that be so, we better learn that much more. We've got that much more history that we can learn from. Back to Judges chapter 19. It came about in those days, there's no king in Israel, a certain Levite sojourning, staying, okay, there it is again, Gur, he's a stranger in the remote part of the hill country of Ephraim, took a concubine for himself from Bethlehem in Judah. We're going to see a contrast with Bethlehem again, and Bethlehem's going to show up to be a good place. That'll be important.
Is this the Bethlehem of Jesus?
Yes. Just a few miles outside Jerusalem, which is called Jebus in these days. It's not the Jerusalem yet of later time. We started last week with a certain Levite. Now we have another no-name Levite. So this is another certain Levite who is sojourning. He doesn't live in that area. He lives somewhere where the Levites live, which would be in the cities of refuge. Perhaps remember, according to Leviticus, Levites don't have their own home, no land apportioned to them. This guy takes a concubine for himself. What should he have taken?
Wife.
Yeah. And she, according to the text in verse 2, she played the harlot against him. Now, some versions have a different translation. What does that say? Yeah, a harlot or a whore. Yeah, so that's from this word, zana. But some versions say that she was angry with him. The Hebrew word zanach. And it's possible that there is a different meaning altogether. If she's playing the harlot, that sounds a lot more like, the people earlier in this book. Mm-hmm. It doesn't surprise me. And that's why most versions have the word whore or harlot or something, that this, when a woman abandons her husband, where's she going to go? She played the harlot doesn't mean she became one.
No.
And here she is married to this certain Levite. She has no certain home now, so she goes back to her father.
Yeah.
She's there for 4 months. Yeah. Then her husband says, I'm going to go speak tenderly to her. I love that. It's the Hebrew word to the heart. Speaks to the heart to her in order to bring her back. Sounds like Hosea the prophet, doesn't it? A beautiful image, because what is her role? Her role was not maternal to children. Her role was simply to be used by the Levite. Concubines were there for sexual pleasures. Against him, she went off with other men. But again, one of the versions translates it, and she was angry with her husband, which also makes more sense, which can make sense, I mean. And that's why she ran off back to daddy. So here comes the certain Levite, verse 3, who not only speaks tenderly to her in order to bring her back, but he takes with him his servant and a pair of donkeys. What does that mean? What's a pair of donkeys? Maybe more than to bring her back. Maybe more than transportation. What's on the donkeys?
As a gift.
What's on the donkeys? food,
Gifts.
gifts, all kinds of
More
provision, lots of stuff, lots of stock. It's a full bank account. That's what it is. And it's also transportation to
Does
get
that
her.
then change her status?
We'll see. When the girls, she brought him into her father's house. So that sounds like reconciliation happened. If she was angry, that's over. If she was playing the harlot, he's already forgiven her and welcomed her back into his life. Either way, reconciliation has happened. And when the girl's father saw him, he was glad to meet him. What does that tell you? What does it tell you when it says he was glad to meet him? What does it tell you about meeting him? He'd never met him before. If he'd never met him before, there was no formal ceremony. There was no marriage.
Yeah.
Does that all make sense? He's happy, glad to meet him because there is restoration. Samach, he's rejoicing. His father-in-law, just in case you miss it, the girl's father, detained him. Verse 4. The Hebrew word for detain, is the word chazak, meaning strong. So the father strong-armed him, if you will, and he remained with him 3 days. So this detaining was manipulation, it was coercion, it was, stick around. No, I'm enjoying our time together. We're doing the New York Times crosswords together. No, I really want you to stick around. And they ate and drank and lodged there. Sounds like it was a full several days. Now on the 4th day, they got up early in the morning and he prepared to go. Who's that?
Levite.
That's the Levite.
Levite.
The Levite. He's rising, Yakum, he's getting up. And the girl's father said to his son-in-law, No, stick around. Sustain yourself with a piece of bread, and afterward you may halach. So they both sat down and ate and drank yachdav together. And the girl's father said to the man, Please be willing to spend the night. Let your heart be merry, or good. And the man arose to go, but his father urged him. This is a different word than restraining him or detaining him, so that he spent the night there again. So 4 days of partying. That's really what it is. They're eating, they're drinking, they're telling stories. All the while, this certain Levite wants to go back home to Bethlehem, where even if that's not his home, it's his lodgment for a while. On the 5th day he arose to go early in the morning, and the girl's father said, Please sustain yourself, that's the word sustain again, sa'ad, and wait until afternoon, or really until the day, meaning the day is full. So both of them ate. And when the man, verse 9, arose to go along with his concubine and servant, when did that guy show up? He was there in the beginning. So he brought plenty of provisions, including a servant. His father-in-law, the girl's father, said to him, Hine, hey, behold, the day has drawn to a close. It's Erev. It's now the evening. Come on, spend the night. Lo, there's Hine. I don't know why they go from behold to lo. It's the same word. The day is coming to an end. Spend the night here that your heart may be merry, meaning drink a little. Then tomorrow you may rise early for your journey so that you may go home. The Hebrew ohel, to your tent. But the man was not willing to spend the night. He'd listened to this detaining for 4 days. It was like a detention center with substantial food, substantial drink. I'm going to guess some of it he even had on his own donkey. So finally he says, No, really, look, boss, thank you. Love it here. Love the time with you. Love getting to know you. I've really got to go home. I'm not designed to be here. The man was not willing to spend the night, so he arose and departed and came to a place opposite Jebus, that is, Jerusalem. And there were with him a pair of saddled donkeys. His concubine also was with him. So he took almost everything back that he brought. The servant, the donkeys, and now he's got the woman. Life is good. When they were near Jebus, the day was almost gone. Mind you, they left, it was almost evening. So it's only a few miles from Bethlehem to Jerusalem. Just a few miles. Okay? And the servant said to his master, Please come, let's turn aside into this city of the Jebusites and spend the night in it. Tell me about the Jebusites. What do you know about them, if you know anything?
Foreigners in Canaan.
They were one of the 7 nations that the Jews were supposed to destroy on entering the land. The Hittites, the Hivites, the Jebusites, etc. That's right. And yet here they are. So is this town a good town? Is it a Jewish town?
No.
No, it's a Jebusite town. Okay? But his master said, verse 12, "We will not turn aside into the city of foreigners who are not of the sons of Israel, but will go on as far as Gibeah," which is now a few miles more north from there, 6 miles north of Jerusalem. He said to his servant, "Come on, let's approach one of these places, and we'll spend the night in Gibeah or Ramah, which is another 2 miles north of Gibeah." So again, just very close as crows fly. But if you've been to Jerusalem, you've been in those hills. The Judean hills aren't exactly straight lines. It's not George Street.
So is that why they've gone north?
No, they were in Bethlehem. Did I say? Sorry. They were in Bethlehem with the father-in-law. He's sojourning. No. He was sojourning. Does it say where? No, he's in the hill country of Ephraim. They're heading north, looking for a Jewish town, a town where Jews were, so they could be safe, so they could be lodging. They were looking for a Holiday Inn. Verse 14, "So they passed along, went their way, and the sun set on them near Gibeah, which belongs to Benjamin." See, so it's a good tribe. The Levite would probably be able to say to some of the fellows, "I'm a Levite, can we stay here?" And remember, in those days, you walked into a town, you went through the city gate, you hung out in the CBD, if you will, and someone would invite you home. It was Airbnb, the original. That's how it is. You bring them home. They turned aside there, verse 15, in order to enter and lodge in Gibeah. When they entered, they sat down in the open square of the city, for no one took them into his house to spend the night. So they just sat down. Now, maybe they could say, well, we didn't know, it was too late, we'd already gone to bed, we'd already left the city square. But apparently he still had hope, and there were people who were milling who could have invited the Levite, his servant, and his concubine. Verse 15, they turned aside there in order to... Oh, sorry, I just read that. Verse 16, then behold, an old man was coming out of the field from his work at evening. A nice guy. We like him already. He's not even named. He's just some old guy, a Zacchaean. Some places Zacchaean is translated elder, but he's just an old fellow. The man was from the hill country of Ephraim. And what do we know about the hill country of Ephraim? What do we know in this story? Verse 1, that's where the Levite was from. Okay? That's where the Levite was staying. And he was staying in Gibeah, but the men of the place were Benjamites. So this old guy was also a sojourner. Now in this village, really just think of it as a village. Think of it like Crow's Nest or Bondi before it all became one big town. Just a little, one milk bar, right? Who grew up in this area? And nothing on Campbell Parade. So think of it like that. One little village, one little store, not much going on. Even though it was close to, look how close Bondi is to the city, until the city grows out to it with Franchise Avenue down Oxford Street. Until that happens, it's a segregated little place. Think Bethlehem, same idea. The men of the place were Benjamites, and he, verse 17, lifted up his eyes, and he saw the traveler in the open square of the city, and the old man said, "Where are you going? Where do you come from?" Now that's a proper question to ask. Are you from here? I don't know you. I'm just visiting here, he's saying. Are you a local? Are you not a local? You from here? Whatever. And he, the Levite, answered and said, "We're passing from Bethlehem in Judah to the remote part of the hill country of Ephraim, for I am from there, and I went to Bethlehem in Judah, but I'm now going to my house." Now he uses the term bayit, and no man will take me into his house. Yet, look at what he's got on his donkeys, verse 19. There's both straw and fodder for our donkeys, and bread and wine for me, your maidservant, and the young man who is with your servants. There's no lack of anything. I've got a big bank account. My Opal card is full. My debit card is full. I can help out. I've got provisions. I took it with me to the father-in-law's place, and I've still got it. Or maybe the father-in-law gave him some more supply. We don't know. But he's got plenty of stock. He's got plenty of cash. He's not a derelict out there on the street to which no one should be looking. He says, we're normal people. We've washed up, we're clean, we're ready. I've got straw and fodder for our donkeys. You don't even have to take care of my animals. The old man said, peace to you. Isn't that great? I want you to have peace. That's really a beautiful shalom lach. Only let me take care of all your needs. However, don't spend the night in the open square. So it's not safe, is what he's saying. Tell you what, thanks, I'm glad you've got plenty of cash, but my B&B is free tonight. So he took him into his house, gave the donkeys fodder, even though the donkeys carried fodder food for themselves. And they washed their feet and ate and drank. I like that hospitality. Beautiful, isn't it? Washed their feet, meaning he comforted them, and ate and drank. He provided for him, for the Levite, for the servant, for the concubine. We don't know this old man, but what a good picture he is. While they were celebrating, behold, the men of the city, certain worthless fellows. Anybody have the translation in another Bible? Sons of Belial. You ever seen that? It's a term that's used every once in a while in the scriptures of worthless fellows. Surrounded the house. This sounds just like Genesis 19.
Yeah,
Sodom, Gomorrah, Lot. It's the same story. Surrounded the house, pounding the door, they spoke to the owner of the house, the old man. So is he the owner, or is he just the Lord of the house? He's the Baal of the house. Well, it says owner. I just wonder, because he's sojourning, so he's got an extended contract there at the house. He's leasing it for 2 years or something. We don't know. Bring out the man who came into your house that we may have sex with him. That's what it says. We want to have relations. The Hebrew yadat. We want to know him. This is intimate sexual. We want to be homosexual with this guy. The man, the owner of the house, went out to them and said, No, my brothers, it says fellows, the Hebrew is brothers. Please don't act so wickedly, ra'ah, so evil. Since this man has come into my house, don't commit this act of nevalah, this folly. Here's my virgin daughter, and here's his concubine. Yeah, and Janie, you're doing exactly what we all do. SMH, which doesn't stand for Sydney Morning Herald. Shake my head. You've got to be kidding. Here's the men of a town whom the old man knows are dangerous. He doesn't want his new resident, his new house guest, to stay out there because he knows who those people are. Who were these people? They're worthless fellows. Tell me more about them. They're Benjamites. These are Jews. I mean, not modern day, they're not Judeans, if you will, but they're from the tribes of Israel. Not all of them. We talked about racism earlier and not labeling an entire people based on the acts of a few. But these guys sure gave Benjamin a bad name. These are historically our people. So remember what it said in 1 Corinthians 10. These were written for our instruction, that we don't do this same thing. Here is my virgin daughter and his concubine, verse 24. Please let me bring them out that you may ravish them, humble them, Anna, humiliate them, and do to them whatever you wish. Yeah, he's given away this woman who has no value. Two people, his own daughter and the man, the Levite's concubine, so that you can do whatever you want. Asulahem hatov beinechem. You can do what's good in your eyes. Good in your eyes. What aches you when you read that? That's right. It's not going to end well, and it's not good, even though it's good in your eyes. There's that reflection of the verse 1. Every man did what was right in his own eyes. This is horrible. But don't commit such an act of folly against this man. That nevalah, that folly. But the men would not listen to him. So the man seized his concubine, brought her out to them, and they raped her and abused her all night until morning, then let her go at the approach of dawn. Every man had his way with this woman. So the day's about to dawn, and the woman came and fell down at the doorway of the man's house where her master was until full daylight. And look where her hands are. Look at verse 27. Her master arose in the morning, opened the doors of the house, went out to go on his way, and his concubine was lying in the doorway of the house with her hands on the threshold, so close to rescue, so close to freedom, and impossible to get up, to resist, to fight back. She was ravished all night. This is a horrible story. The master woke up in the morning, meaning he slept through her cries. He slept through the noise of these men. Horrible, horrible. He opened the door and went out to go on his way. Wait a minute. To go on his way. What does that tell you? Where did he think she was? Outside the door. She'd already left him once to play the harlot. Here might be, in his mind, compensation to her for doing that, though he spoke tenderly to her, won her back, had several days with her father. But yeah, this is probably recompense. This is probably God's justice. And I'm out of here. I'm out of here. She's dead. He's imagining her being dead. He heard the screams at the beginning. He heard the volume of men initiating contact with her, abusing her all night. Somehow he fell asleep in that, and he's on his way. And behold, meaning, oh my, behold, look at this. His concubine's lying at the doorway of the house with her hands on the threshold. That scene of her hands on the threshold so saddens me. He said to her, get up and let's go. What if he changed his mind from leaving her or abandoning her or not even burying her? Now he said, in a very, sounds like, caustic way, come on, woman, get up, let's go. But there was no answer, and he placed her on the donkey, and the man arose and went to his home. So maybe he did have a little rachmanis. Maybe he did pick her up and say, I should take her out of here. She's just going to be abused again. Let me get her out. What do you think's going through his mind? What do you know about this guy? Nothing? Did he really want to take her home, or did he just want to go home? I've been there 4 days. Man, I gotta go. So he goes to the town north, goes through Jebus. No, that's not where we're going to stay. Goes to Gibeah. Yeah, all right, we'll stay here. Benjamites are here. The crowd comes. He lets the old man go out and defend him. The Levite doesn't go out and defend himself, doesn't go out and defend his wife. No wonder he's not named. He's just a certain Levite, okay? No answer. He places her, verse 28, on the donkey, and he went to his home. So we're wondering what their relationship is going to be like, but here we go. Verse 29, when he entered his house, he took a knife, laid hold of his concubine, and cut her in 12 pieces, limb by limb. I think it means unto the bone. And he sent her throughout the territory of Israel. All who saw it said, nothing like this has ever happened or been seen from the day when the sons of Israel came up from the land of Egypt to this day. Consider it, take counsel, and speak up. What does it mean? He cut her into how many pieces? Where did he send her? Each tribe got one piece.
Benjamin.
So he sent 12 pieces of her, one to each, Reuben, Simeon, Judah, etc. Wow. That is so gory, so disgusting. But what's he doing? Why is he sending her? There's so many open questions that the text doesn't answer. All we know is, as it ends, we're left with a wondering, which chapter 20, by the way, is going to answer. So the end of the story is not the end of the story. We're going to see the rest of the story next week. But I want you to ponder, here you are at the mail room of the tribe of Reuben, and a parcel arrives to the tribe of Reuben, signed a certain Levite. What are you going to do? This is this week. What are you going to do? I want you to ponder. So we don't know, but I want you to ponder this week. Each one of these characters, what would you have said if you were the old man when you, there living in the land of Benjamin, in Gibeah, the owner of the house, your virgin daughter was spared, the men of town who are not to be trusted laid into a woman severely, so much so that now the story is that in Benjamin, an arm of that woman was shipped. What do you feel? I want you to try to feel. I want you to try to feel it. Don't answer it now. I want you to feel it and discuss. Be ready to discuss it as we begin next week. That's where we're going.